morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very exciting segment today on the 22nd day of October 2022. And well, in Brisbane, it's raining today. So it's 21 degrees and raining right now. And it's been forecast for rain throughout the weekend. It's not very good for a lot of function and event organizers. Indoor ones are still okay, but, there's some that will be some. We know that the new farm parade in the park and the bands that have been cancelled. We've received a notification from Councillor Vicky Howard. Well, right now, what's happening today marks the first day of Diwali. And so it is the 22nd of October, Saturday, which is Deepavali Day 1, which is also known as Dwadasi, Gavatsya Dwadasi Vasu Varas. So, what does all this mean? So, this will be going on for next 6 days. We will show you what's every day. So, this is through, this has been sourced through Drik Panchan, converted for Brisbane time. So, there we are. So, what is Diwali? Diwali, which is also known as Deepavali, is the most famous festival of the year. Diwali is the 5 days of festivities period which begins on Dhanteras and ends on Bhai Dooj. However, in Maharashtra, Diwali festivities begin 1 day earlier on Gavats Dwadasi, which is today. While in Gujarat, Diwali festivities begin 2 days earlier on Agyaras and culminates on Lab Panchami. During 5 days of festivities, various rituals are performed. With goddess Lakshmi, several other goddesses and goddesses are worshipped. However, goddess Lakshmi is the most significant deity during Diwali Puja. The new moon day, which is known as Amavasya, is most significant day of the 5 days Diwali festivities known as Lakshmi Puja, Lakshmi Ganesh Puja and Diwali Puja. Diwali Puja is done not only in families but also in offices. Diwali Puja is the significant day for most traditional Hindu businessmen. On this day, ink bottles, pens, and new account books are worshipped. Ink bottles and pen, which are called Davat and Lekhni, respectively, are sanctified by worshipping goddess Mahakali on them. New account books, which are called Khata, Bahi Khata, are sanitized by worshipping goddess Saraswati on them. The most auspicious time to do the Diwali Puja is after sunset. The time period after sunset is known as Pradosh. The day of Diwali Puja is decided when Amavasya Tithi prevails during Pradosh. Hence, no other Diwali Puja Muhurat is as good as the Puja Muhurat during Pradosh, even if it is only available for ek ghadi, which is 24 minutes. So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's go on to the top news for today.
Evacuation order is in place for the north of Moree in New South Wales. With the SES warning last night, it expected some properties to be inundated. Meanwhile, the Murray River is expected to reach major flood levels at Echuca and Moama on the New South Wales-Victoria border today before peaking tomorrow above the 1993 flood level.
The government says it will increase financial penalties for companies that suffer serious or repeated privacy breaches when federal parliament returns next week. The proposed changes would see the fine increase to either $50 million or 30% of a company's adjusted turnover in the relevant period.
Former senior advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, has been sentenced to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Mr. Bannon refused to comply with a subpoena from the Congressional Committee investigating the January 6 attack on the US Capitol, claiming executive privilege.
And the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has touched down in Perth ahead of high-level talks with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The two will today sign a new security declaration, updating a pact signed by both countries in 2007.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, the top news for today, the 22nd day of October 2022, with a rainy Brisbane right now at 21 degrees at this point in time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's take a look at the next news, which is the budget, and let's see what the Treasurer has to say about that. Our own Queenslander, Jim Chum.
Responding to natural disasters and building resilience in our economy will be absolutely central features. We'll put a premium on what's right and what's responsible, and we certainly won't be turning our back on Australians doing it tough in flood-affected communities. These floods will detract around 1/4 percentage point from GDP growth in the December quarter. That will be recovered, in their estimation, in the subsequent 2 quarters after that. Floods will cause fruit and vegetable prices, for example, to be 8% higher than otherwise over the next 2 quarters, the last quarter of this calendar year, the first quarter of next calendar year, and that's based on the impact of previous flooding on some of our prime agricultural land.
Well, of course, with all that flooding, and we've seen interest rate rises, what does all this mean for us financially?
Because of the floods, we know the price of fruit and vegetables is set to rocket. On Wednesday, we'll get the latest moves in the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. But the figures from June tell us plenty already. Every time you fill up the trolley, you're paying more and getting less. Overall, inflation is forecast to hit 7.75% by the end of 2022. If your wage is going up by anything like that, stay there. This year, the song We Don't Talk About Bruno was at #1 in the UK, longer than Prime Minister Liz Truss was at #10. Inflation there is above 10%, the highest in 40 years. And the economy, market and pound were already struggling. Here it is against the US dollar. Truss's plan for massive unfunded tax cuts smashed confidence. Today the UK stock market recovered a little. But the Bank of England has predicted a recession there from the end of the year all through 2023. Our currency remains below 63 US cents. It lifted in value against the pound. On commodities, the price of iron ore fell 2.5%, still above $91 US a tonne. And the index covering our biggest companies was down today and shed value throughout the week. While the share price of beleaguered wealth manager AMP was flat because customers only withdrew $800 million this quarter. They're leaving more slowly. And that's finance.
And there you go, that's the finance update. And as we have seen, that you'd be paying more, taking home less in the trolley. So the inflation and the cost of living has not been, has been rising as so. And the floods are not going to be helping that situation at all. While the other big news that's been is the news of what's going to happen with all the evacuations.
And I can see that there are 12 warnings in place at the moment. Could you just take us through the areas of which you are most concerned about?
Look, today the focus continues to be on the northern catchments here in Victoria, in particular that area from Barmer to Lower Moira through to Echuca, where currently we've got a height of 94.75 metres as it creeps towards that peak of around about 95 metres AHD sometime overnight Sunday into Monday. And then as we go further across on the Loddon River, where Kerrang is now isolated, we've got a river height there this morning of 77.92 metres as that heads towards a height of 78 metres sometime today. And also, I guess, we've got a range of other river systems that are still having watch and act messages and the like as they start to recede.
You mentioned Echuca there, of course, being one of the areas of main concerns. We have seen the SES and other volunteers, they're sandbagging around that area. Yesterday, I read a quote from you saying that sandbags may not be enough.
I guess we've seen 195,000 sandbags put into place in and around Echuca, and we're hopeful that that good work will protect a range of properties, particularly also with an additional levee wall that has been put into place for parts of Echuca, but we are continuing to emphasise to people there is an evacuation warning out for that area, and we are asking people to move to that higher ground, particularly as we start to reach this peak in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Just in terms of the evacuation warnings and the orders, are you seeing people heeding those orders?
Look, we're seeing a range of responses. In the main, people are starting to heed those warnings. We understand that people are taking protection of their homes still in those areas, but again, the next 24 to 48 hours there, because as we've seen in the south of the state overnight, we've seen thunderstorms come through. We're starting to see that tend to rain. And so we've seen in some parts isolated totals of 30 to 60 millimetres of rain in the south of the state, and that'll spread to wider parts of our state today and tomorrow.
Tim, one thing that's come out of this particular emergency and other emergencies in the past are concern for people who don't speak English, who may not be familiar as to where or how to get information in terms of evacuation or where to go for safety. How are you addressing that issue?
Look, we've been engaging with the Victorian Multicultural Commission well before these floods started, and making sure we're connecting with the community leaders of those culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And during this flood event around Shepparton, as just one example, bringing those community leaders together on a daily basis, utilising their networks to get our messages out there in those languages. And our preparation material is translated into 15 different languages to really try and help disseminate those key messages about what people should do to prepare for flooding.
And what should people do to prepare for flooding, Tim, just very briefly?
Look, I guess heeding the warnings is the first piece, staying attuned to our emergency broadcasters such as the ABC, but also making sure that you're lifting things to higher locations in your homes is really the key, and also then bag it, block it, lift it and leave.
All right, Victorian SES, the Chief Officer of the Victorian SES, Tim Wiebusch, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let's stay with the flooding situation. And on the ground in Victoria, our reporter Rosa Ritchie is in Mooroopna, where heavy rain is lashing the area just as residents attempt to begin the long clean-up there. Rosa, good morning again to you. How are things looking there this morning?
Good morning. Well, looking at this street today, it's hard to imagine that it was completely underwater during the peak of the floods, and all along the street sandbags dot the fronts of businesses, which have some started to reopen. So life is returning to some semblance of normality, but I can hear the stormwater drains rushing on the other side of the street. I've seen gutters full of water. So there is a sense of nervousness with the rain that's falling, up to 20 millimetres today, continuing over the weekend, and up to 35 millimetres in this area on Monday. Cumulatively, that will have an impact, and we're being advised to stay abreast of all the emergency warnings in case of increased river levels, in case the flooding increases somewhat, although we know that it almost certainly won't be as bad as it was the week prior. And here in Mooroopna, the Football Netball Club today will have 150 to 200 volunteers gearing up. They're getting ready now to go and help people with the clean-up effort. So much work going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, a very long clean-up effort. But also, you know, this continues there, Rosa. How are the preparations there? Are those areas prepared for this?
For this rainfall?
For the rainfall, yes, and for the flooding.
Well, to a degree. I'm told that once sandbags are wet, they're not useful a second time. So were things to increase seriously, then I suppose we'd have to renew some of those efforts and those preparations with which we've become really familiar. But we still have an incident control centre here in Shepparton. We still have emergency services on the ground. People are doing welfare checks. We knew that about 4,500 homes would be impacted in one way or another by the flooding, and now we know that at least 116 had significant flooding. So we're beginning to get a sense of the impact, and then that kind of data really helps us understand what to do next time and how to better prepare should we be in this situation again.
And of course, the preparation is the key, and also always listening to those warnings that have been put out there. It's very, very important for that. Well, the other news, top news for this week has been this.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent, and our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth. I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance. And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security. I will remain as Prime Minister until a successor has been chosen. Thank you.
So until a successor has been chosen, and wow, what a 10 of events are there in London, in England. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. But hey, it's the weekend, so I've got a weekend treat for you. And even though we're saying it's time to go, and Yusuf is saying something else. He wants us to stay.
बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। देखिए वो काली काली बदलियां, जुल्फ की घटा चुरा न ले कहीं, चोरी चोरी आके शौक बिजलियां, आपकी अदा चुरा न ले कहीं। यूं कदम अकेले ना आगे बढ़ाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। देखिए गुलाब की वो डालियां, बढ़ के चूम लेना आपके कदम। देखिए गुलाब की वो डालियां, बढ़ के चूम लेना आपके कदम। खोए खोए भोरे भी है बाग में, कोई आपको बना न ले सनम। बहकी नजरों से खुद को बचाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। जिंदगी के रास्ते अजीब हैं, इसमें इस तरह चला न कीजिए। खैर है इसी में आपकी हुजूर, अपना कोई साथी ढूंढ लीजिए। सुन के दिल की बात यूं ना मुस्कुराइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए। बेकरार करके हमें यूं न जाइए, आपको हमारी कसम लौट आइए।
Well done, Yusuf Ali ji. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to watch all of our previous Music Junction lives where Yusuf and Bondita and Mithun and Usa Sivikula, they've all appeared. They're all on our YouTube channel, easier to find. You can find them on Facebook as well. But if you go to our YouTube channel and just select playlist, under that you'll find all of them categorized there. Now we have all the news segments, or this what I'm doing now, the daily news segment in one section, and migration ka safar all in one section. You'll find Aap Kisse Hai, the doctor's program, all in one section. So it's all been done thanks to Anna. She's been working very hard to get all of those in proper categories so that they are in the right place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. We're 21 degrees and raining right now in Brisbane, but hey, it's been wonderful having your company with the wish that we will meet again at our next show. It's time to say goodbye.